It's not often I get a chance to sit down with really an icon in Canada. I don't know, welcome Paul, I don't know if anybody, maybe Wayne Gretzky, maybe, but I don't know if anybody has given more autographs than you have. It must be in the tens of thousands. I mean, and you're as much in demand for autographs now as you have been for the last 38 years.
It's scary, isn't it? Just like a bad smell, I won't go away.
I think something that should be said right at the top is that you not only scored the big goal in '72, but you also scored the winning goals in the previous 2 games. So you had 3 game winners in that series. As I was reading your book, and by the way, this is a terrific book, Shooting for Glory. This is a terrific history of that event, and also a great insight into your life. There was a certain mystery surrounding the Russians at that time. Nobody knew who Kharlamov was, or Yakushev, or Tretiak. And the assumption was that you were going to go into that series and just wipe these guys out.
Well, we really figured with the firepower that we had that we would overwhelm them. I mean, obviously, when you look at, you start a line with Esposito and Cornway and Mahavlich, I figured, man, we're just going to blow them away. But obviously, they were prepared for us. They had prepared for 3 years, put this team together, and they were, their physical conditioning was unnerving. Like they changed the way, you know, we prepared for the game because they were so much better physically conditioned initially and very skilled also. And I mean, in '72 we hated them because they were Russians, but I've gotten to know them, and they're wonderful individuals, just really terrific people, very, very gifted hockey players.
You know, there was almost a Star Wars aspect to this series in that they really represented the dark side. I mean, there was nobody in Canada who had any love for Russia. I mean, the Cold War was in full sway. The Iron Curtain was there. The Berlin Wall was there, and these awful communist Russians, it was almost like an apocalyptic event. Did you have a sense of that dark side element?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. They were taking over the world. They were the bad guys. They were the bad guys. And I mean, they controlled everything. I mean, you couldn't get out of the country. We knew that. Very subversive. And there was even apprehensive, a bit of apprehension even going over there. What do we expect? And we knew they were ruthless in how they treated people. So there was a little bit of tension for sure.
You mentioned in your book that even your hotel rooms were bugged.
Well, we felt they were, and when you got a room key and you had to hand it in every time you left, and they had these people patrolling the hallways, and so that's the way we operated. So we knew they were being watched, and we felt the rooms probably were being bugged, but you know.
It had to be tough for you and the rest of the team to see the response and to feel the response of the Canadians to the first few games.
Well, I've often said we would not have won that series without the Canadians. There was 3,000 of them, and 2 distinct memories. After we lost the first game in Moscow, we had to listen to the national anthem. They had a wonderful national anthem, but it was too long when you lose.
Right.
And we were skating off the ice. These 3,000 Canadians stood up and gave us a standing ovation. And 2 hours later, we get back to the hotel, and it was a miserable night in Moscow, and there was at least 1,000 Canadians lined up outside our hotel room, and we got off the bus. They gave us another standing ovation, which was, now the fact that most of them were hammered probably has got nothing to do with it, but they were there, and you know, everybody needs encouragement every once in a while. And those Canadians sang the national anthem, I would suggest, as well as it's ever been sung before those last 3 games. And so I give a lot of credit to those crazy Canadians that came over there.
But especially in contrast to the reaction of the Canadians for the first few games in Canada, when you were falling flat, as it were. And even Esposito, literally, he skated out on the ice and fell flat. But the Canadians were so disappointed, and I think maybe thrown by the skill set of the Russians in those first few games. And it was kind of discouraging, wasn't it?
Well, it was very discouraging. You know, our families didn't want to talk to us, so we were in embarrassment. I mean, but they caught us by surprise, and we really knew. But I think we knew we're going to get in better shape as we grew along. And I was really looking forward to playing on the larger ice surface. I mean, speed and shooting were my 2 assets. So I really felt that I would do well especially in the larger ice surface too, and it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, I've often thought you would have been a good Russian player because of your speed. I mean, these guys are so fast, and I think that was one of the things that shocked a lot of us fans as well. In terms of the team dynamics, you mentioned some of these great players. Most of you were playing for different teams in the NHL. What was it like when you first got into the dressing room, and did it take some time to gel as a team?
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, you didn't like the guys. A lot of them you had to bump heads against every night. And it was a recipe for disaster also. You got 35 of the best hockey players in Canada, and only 18 of them can play. So you got 17 guys that are ticked off every game and want to play. And so it was a very, very difficult situation. How do you keep that many people happy? You can't. And so there was a lot of tension that I don't think they thought about initially.
Now, you had a few players on the team with whom you had a warm personal relationship, like Ronnie Ellis, for instance. Did you find yourself, without intending to, forming little cliques, you know, with those with whom you were most familiar?
Well, obviously, Ronnie and I roomed together because we were teammates. But we came together as, you know, there was much respect. And after we found out how great they were, I mean, we knew we had to come together as a team. And I think that happened when we went over to Sweden. We went over to Sweden and we played a couple of games there. And, and we were basically getting down to these are the guys that are going to play. There was 2 or 3 guys by that time were in and out of the lineup. But the last 3 games, we basically had the same lineup. And so that took a lot of the tension away.
Do you know why they decided to have 8 games?
We were going to win. I mean, we were going to win. I think, well, and it makes sense. You got 4 games in Canada and 4 games in Moscow, and so I don't think anybody ever thought there would be a tie. But the Russians really felt they could beat us. I mean, they were prepared that well, and I think that we took them for granted. We underestimated them to start with, and then I think when they won the first game in Moscow, I think they sat back and just, well, now we've got them. But I think for the first time we outplayed them, even though we lost it. I think there was mainly some bad refereeing in that first game over in Moscow. We really felt that we had outplayed them for the first time, maybe. And actually, I scored 2 goals in that first game, and even had a concussion. I was not supposed to play. I went into the boards backwards, and the doctors told me I couldn't play. And Harry and I had a talk, and we played. So,
Harry Sinden.
Yes.
I want to talk about concussions in a minute. It's a really current discussion right now in the NHL. Tell me about Yakushev. I was 24 years of age. I'm watching this series, and I'm seeing this guy, Yakushev, who absolutely amazed me. It seemed that he had the size of Mahovlich, the speed of a Henderson, and he almost had glue on his stick. Were you astonished at this guy?
Well, a lot of them. They were like Karlamov himself, but I mean, Mikhailov. I mean, you can go through the names, they're defensemen. They were all very accomplished hockey players. I think every one of them could have played in the NHL. I really do. Yeah. They were but you know, Karlamov and Yakushev stood out. No question about their skill level, and he was a big man. And handled them. I mean, his soft hands. I mean, well, look at how many goals he scored.
I know, he was absolutely astonishing. And what did you think of Tretiak?